this is the part that I never forget. And every time I talk about it, I get the chills because it was so crazy. We have a good 2 to 3 blocks before we get back to the parking lot. And we start hearing this. It's a call, it's a scream, it's a holler. I don't know what we're hearing, but it is unlike any vocal I've ever heard up until this point, that I'm like, what is that? And she looks at me and we're like, what is that? And we heard it all the way back to the parking lot. The hair on the back of your neck is up and you're like, I don't know what this is. I started doing research, animal calls, and it's now, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just trying to find something that sounds similar to what we heard. And I thought, for the heck of it, I'm just going to Google Bigfoot calls and see what comes up.
This is Bigfoot Crossroads. My name is Matt, and joining me is Tammy. Tammy is from Michigan, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I wanted to make sure. I knew that you originally had, your encounter in Michigan, but I didn't know if you were still there or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just go back to that to kind of get started. 2016 in Michigan, I believe you were hiking.
Yes, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So a lot of times when people say Michigan, they equate that with Lower Michigan because that seems to be, Michigan to most people. But I live in what they call the UP, Upper Michigan. So that's where I still live. I don't live in the same location where I had my initial experience, but I'm only an hour and a half west from there, where I currently reside. But yeah, I'm in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
I mean, from what I understand is it's pretty remote and still wild, isn't it? I mean, is there a lot of modernization up there?
Yeah, there is. Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan is, I think the second, I don't even know my history here. My second largest city in the UP. I could be wrong. Marquette, Michigan is, hour and a half north of me, which is a pretty large, it's a college town, pretty large, diverse, it's diverse. It reminds me of, it's like a Chicago and a New York rolled into 30,000 people.
Oh, okay.
And then with a lot of hiking and biking, there's a little bit of everything in Marquette, Michigan, and the same with Sault Ste. Marie. But for the most part, it is pretty remote. There's the Porcupine Mountains, there's Copper Harbor. There's been quite a few reports made, Bigfoot sightings up here, Dogman, alien encounters. So, I mean, there's been a lot of reports all over the map on different things. But it is pretty remote. I mean, the town that I'm living in right now, I think only has 4,000 people in it.
Oh, wow.
But a lot of woods.
Was Bigfoot something on your mind or anything that you gave thought to before all this started?
No, actually, before I had my first encounter back in 2016, I was, I kind of, single mom, working 3 jobs, one of them as a psychic medium, working in the wedding industry, working in the financial realm, a little bit of everything, going back to college, got my social work degree, very comfortable in the paranormal world, regardless of all the so-called normal things I was doing, like social work and stuff like that, but very, very comfortable in the paranormal field, doing readings, getting called to come to people's property and assess what kind of spirits they might have on their property or entities. Very comfortable with that because I had been communicating with those that have passed since I was a child. So doing that kind of stuff, I was very comfortable. I was just kind of thinking, no, I'm going to, be doing like 3 jobs the rest of my life and whatever. And then decided to do a night hike in an area that I had been hiking for probably a couple of years. But one of my friends who had been hiking in this area more than me and knew the area really well called me up and said, hey, you want to go for a night hike? And I'm pretty sure it was on Thanksgiving Day. And if I look back at my BFRO report that was published, I think it was like Thanksgiving Day, November 26, 2016, if I believe. We went on a night hike to this popular hiking trail, 9 loops, about 20 minutes away from where I was living at that time. And there was no, what are we going to run into? It's just, we're going to go on a night hike. I think there was a full moon, and both of us really enjoyed being outdoors. So we get to this hiking trail, we pull up into the parking lot, and I want to say it had to be anywhere between 7 and 9. And like I said, if I look back at my report, I'm going to know what time it was, but a lot has happened in 8 years.
Yeah.
So we pull up in the parking lot and get out of our vehicles because I met her there. There was no one else. This is important. There was no one else in the parking lot. Typically, people do not hike out there at night because it is extremely wooded. It's a little spooky at night. And if you don't like the night, or if you're afraid of the dark, it's not a place you're going to go hike at night. Mm-hmm. So we get out there, and she actually made a joke at the beginning of the trail. We started walking about seeing Bigfoot, and I kind of ignored that whole, I was just like, well, maybe we'll see fairies, because at this point in the game, I had talked to people who had supposedly had fairy interactions, and I thought, well, maybe we'll see fairies. We were just kind of laughing as we started walking down the trail, and then we get to an area where the road, the trail itself, goes across a bridge, and then it winds off, and you can take different routes. And we decided to take a right. Now, I got to back up a little bit here. I grew up on 80 acres in a hunting family, so I don't have a fear of the dark. I used to night hike with my dad when he would hunt, and so being out there at night didn't bother me. And I also kind of know animal sounds. So as we're walking along this trail, I hear something. We both heard something walking, and I knew it was something that was on 2 feet. I could just tell by the way it was walking, it was 2 feet. It wasn't 4. Growing up in a hunting family and being out in the woods. And my friend was like, I wonder what that is. And I'm like, oh, it's probably just a deer. And I said that because I didn't want her to freak out and run back to the parking lot. And I was like, I kind of wanted to keep walking, So I was like, well, I think it's just a deer. But I knew in the back of my mind it wasn't, because I could tell it was bipedal or on 2 feet. So then we keep walking on this one loop, and we both see this, I guess you would call it eye shine. We see this orb or eye shine up in it has to be up in a tree, because we are, 5 feet tall, each of us, and we're seeing this thing that is so bright off to our left, because the noise was on the right, and then this orb was on the left, and it was just this big, bright white light. And she was making comments like, maybe it's somebody with a headlamp. I'm like, up in a tree? And she's maybe it's a 3-wheeler light. I'm like, up in a tree? I don't know what that is, but it's kind of up in the tree, and it's high up in a tree. And we weren't next to the ridge yet. So, it had to be at least 12, 15 feet up in a tree. And it was stationary. It wasn't moving. And I was just kind of like, I just kept walking. And so we just kept walking. And we get around to an area where there's a fire pit back on like the second loop. And we're just sitting there. There's a bench, and we were sitting there just talking. It's dark. And you'd think by this point, you know, I'm in my back of my mind, I'm going, okay, whatever was back there was on 2 feet. And then we see this orb thing. You'd think one of us would have been thinking we should just get out of here. But no, we're going to go sit on this bench in a fire pit and we're just going to hang out for like probably a good hour, maybe a little longer. And then we decide we're going to head back to the parking lot. And I didn't know any different route to get back because I didn't know the trail back there as well as she did. So I was kind of like, well, which way do you want to go? And so I'm kind of following her back. And we kind of made a big loop. So the way we came in, when we came back out by the bridge, we came on the left. So we came around. So we went right instead of left, but then we came back on the left. So it's like we made this big circle. And this is the part that I never forget. And every time I talk about it, I get the chills because it was so crazy. We walk across the bridge and now we have a good 2 to 3 blocks before we get back to the parking lot. And we start hearing this. And I still to this day, what do you call it? It's a call, it's a scream, it's a holler. I don't know what we're hearing, but it is unlike any vocal I've ever heard up until this point, that I'm like, what is that? And she looks at me and we're like, what is that? And it was like, at first I was like, okay, there's an animal hurt in the woods and it's dying, or so we kind of hurried our pace a little bit because we've had a little ways to go to get back to our cars. And we heard it all the way back to the parking lot. And we knew that we were moving away from it because the closer we got to the cars, the less we could hear it. But it was still, I don't know what, I don't know what you call it. I mean, it was the hair on the back of your neck is up and you're like, I don't know what this is, but it's something. So we get back to our cars and I'm going through animals in my head, like coyote, mountain lion, fox, deer, cow. I can't come up with, I'm like, I don't know what this is or what. And so we get in our cars. And I mean, it was weird because we were both kind of scared, but not really, because it's almost like when you hear something that's so freaking strange, you kind of freeze, but yet, I don't know. It's like you'd think at this point, even earlier in the night, we would have like not even stayed out there. But we did. And then, so we get in our cars and I said to her, I'm going to go home. I'm going to do some research because I cannot, like, should we go back? Is that animal dying? Should we try and help it? I mean, there was even a point where I was like, is something hurt? So about 20 minutes for me to get home, 20 minutes for me to get home. And then I started doing research, animal calls. And it's now, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just trying to find something that sounds similar to what we heard. And I thought, for the heck of it, I'm just going to Google Bigfoot calls and see what comes up.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. Yep. Just gonna Google Bigfoot calls on my laptop and see what happens. And I was listening to various calls that were uploaded on YouTube. And now this is a whole new world for me. I'm like thinking to myself, I'm literally sitting here looking for Bigfoot calls. It's just, to me, it was like, oh, okay. And I came across a vocalization that was captured, I think Rainier, Washington. There's a call that it sounded almost exactly like, and when I clicked on that and I heard that, I immediately texted my friend and I said, I'm going to send you this and I want you to listen to it and I want you to tell me, is this what we heard or is this what we not heard? I want to know because I'm thinking this is pretty damn close to what we heard out there. So she listened to it and she said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm like, are you kidding me? Did we hear Bigfoot? Like, what? Really? So it took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that we were in company of Bigfoot Sasquatch that night.
In a place that you had been to numerous times before.
Mm-hmm.
Never,
yeah.
Never anything.
Yeah. No, and you'd think that, and of course my mind is going, I'm a psychic medium. I know energies. Why do I not know this energy? Why am I not? And I mean, obviously now I understand why I didn't. I mean, like I said, this has been an 8-year journey. I understand for the most part why I wasn't able to pick up on what kind of energy that was. But back then I was like, why is Bigfoot jumping into my life? I mean, sure, is this really Bigfoot? What? It became a very confusing situation. So then I don't know how long it was after that, because it had to be pretty close. I started seeking out people I could talk to about it. Jenny was pretty much remaining, I don't know if anonymous is the word. I was more, I need to talk to somebody. I need to get confirmation that I'm not nuts. So I want to say I was watching a news thing on TV, or probably on my phone or something. I was watching like a news clip of a local Bigfoot researcher that runs a group up in the Upper Peninsula, and he was doing a clip on the local news about Bigfoot calls and that he runs an organization. So I reached out to him, and we arranged a time to get together so I could tell him the story. And he decided that he was going to get it published through the BFRO. And so it ended up getting published in the following year, in 2017, and ended up getting published. So it's on the database. It's in the database. So then I ended up joining the Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Research Sasquatch organization. I ended up joining that group for a while and going on a couple of expeditions when I was obviously very new to the whole Bigfoot world. And there's a lot of fear. There's also a lot of compassion and loving. I mean, I've over the 8 years I've witnessed in people who are involved in this field, everything from, oh my God, they are bad, to, oh my God, they are the most loving creature on the planet.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, I'm over here and they are the most loving being on the planet, and I feel protected when I'm in the woods. So I started out with, I don't know what this is. And then some of the gifting that went on early on freaked me out. But now I'm over in the other camp.
Well, first off, I want to go back to the call that you heard.
Okay.
Was it the same call being repeated over and over? Was it one kind of long call?
Was the same call being repeated over and over. It would be like that screaming, howly. It sounded like a dying cow. I don't know how else to say it. And then it would start over. It would be like this long call, but then it would start over. And it did that until we left. I mean, I don't know if it was continuing after we left, of course, but all the way to from where we started hearing it to when we got to the parking lot.
When you first heard it, about how far away would you think it was?
It was probably not too far from where we were when we were at the fire pit. It just waited, because it felt from when we were at the bridge point and we started hearing it, it sounded a good, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile away. No, maybe half. I'm not really good with lengths, and like maybe it had to be closer to where the fire pit was. And it took us about 10 minutes to get from the fire pit to the bridge.
Okay.
So it was a ways back. I mean, loud.
Do you think the one that you heard was the same one that was walking around earlier?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it was two separate. I think the one walking next to the river, because this trail on the right would have been a ravine and a river. When we crossed the bridge and we took a right, there'd be the left, which would be wooded. And on the right, there would be a little bit like a ravine and a river. So the one on 2 feet was on the right. And then when we made our trek back to that fire pit, that would have been far. Yeah, I feel like it was two separate.
Okay.
And I look back now, and I mean, I've had other experiences. Before we moved, I had 5 years of experience in that, because once I had the initial experience and I started to feel comfortable exploring the Sasquatch realm, I would spend lots of time out there alone, gathering my own evidence, collecting pictures, doing gifting stuff to see what would happen. I got a couple of really crazy gifting stories. And then at some point, before we moved to where we live now, my son and I, the telepathic communication stuff started.
So you were very well versed, as you said, in the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Very experienced whenever it came to those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
So you see this orb. It was different than anything paranormal you had experienced?
Yes.
What kind of feelings did you get from it? Anything?
It was different in the sense that it was more solid and it was bright and it had that feeling of, I don't know what this is. Versus if someone was to hand me a picture and say, tell me what you think. Do you think these are orbs in this picture or do you think this is dust? And I'd say 99% of the time, I'm pretty good at saying that's dust. That's just a bug. No, that is an orb. That is some spiritual energy. So seeing this bright, shining orb or light up in the air, stationary or in a tree, it had an unknown feeling to it. It was like, I don't know what this is.
All right. So let's fast forward. Now you're feeling comfortable in the Sasquatch realm. You're going out there. Did you immediately start gifting, or how did that come about?
First expedition was just getting in the flow of being around other people who are in the Sasquatch field that don't all agree. Second, well, right. And another reason why I don't do expeditions anymore, because of it's a matter of, I need to be, I think, it's like finding your tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being with people that have the same opinions kind of helps the cause versus everybody having a different opinion. Second expedition I went on, there was a group of us walking down, and this would be the second expedition at a location that 3 hours west of where I live right now. No, east. A popular expedition area in the Upper Peninsula. Second time there, few of us were walking down the road. It's a very remote campground. It's rustic. And I noticed this rock on the ground. And I was going to pass it up. And I backed up and I looked at it and I said, oh, there's some etching on this rock. And I'm making a long story kind of shortened up because it was an interesting weekend. And I picked it up and I was like, there's etching on this rock. And I'm going to keep it. And there was a few people in the group that was like, yeah, you should probably keep that. It was probably meant for you to keep. And so later on that evening, I passed it around. Everybody at the campground was taking a look at the rock and coming up with their opinions on what they thought the etching was, because it did look like a dragonfly. And that resonates with this whole journey I'm on. And then most people were like, it's a dragonfly. It looks like somebody etched a dragonfly on it. And of course, my curiosity was like, well, why would I get a rock with an etching on it? Why did I see this? All these questions, and then I thought, well, when I get done with this expedition, I'm going to touch base with the Native American couple that gave me my Native American name. And I had been in touch with them off and on once the Bigfoot stuff started, because it seems that Native Americans have a really good understanding of Sasquatch people. And there's a lot of groundedness with Native American theories and ideas with them. So I thought, well, I'm going to just touch base with the couple that gave me my name and see what they think. So I got back from the expedition and I touched base with them, and we were actually on the phone, and I sent them a picture and I said, what do you think this is? And I gave them went on an expedition, found this rock, and the the man, his name is Bruce. It's Bruce and Pat. They're a couple, and they are the ones who gave me my Native American name. And he said, well, it's obvious that the rock was meant for you. It's a dragonfly. And they probably knew you were coming back because you'd been there before. And I'm like, what? Really? You know, kind of like, you kidding me? They're going to know that I'm coming back and that's a gift? How crazy is that? And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? You know, and he said, well, I suggest you go back to where you had your initial experience and wash the rock in a stream, thank the Sasquatch for giving you the gift, and bring a gift. Now this is just such a crazy story, and when I repeat this story, I just think this is nuts, but it is a little nuts. they're like, bring some squash and some blueberries to the river, wash the rock, and thank the Sasquatch people for remembering you, giving you the rock. And, you know, okay. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that. Not thinking, you know, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go back to where I had my initial experience with my friend, go to the river. So I go to do that. And then I'm still in touch with the UPR group, where I live, just keeping the guy who organizes the group in the loop, because he wanted to know how things were going with the rock and stuff and what I was going to do with it. So I go to there, I wash the rock, I bring a squash and a blueberry, and I'll be honest with you, at this time I'm thinking this is kind of nuts. I am at a river where I had the initial weird thing and I'm washing a rock. This just seems really nuts.
I mean, I've been there.
Right?
I've been there. That's all I can say.
I don't think it's nuts anymore, but like then I'm like, what is going on? And what is this world I'm jumping into? Just so I leave, I do the thing, I leave, I go back to my life, you know, just being me, just working in college, raising my son, doing my thing. And the guy's name is Rich, the organization guy from the Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Research Organization, just shoots me a text, I don't know, a week later. Hey, why don't you go back and check where you did the washing the rock and see if anything's different? I'm like, why would I do that? Just go do it. Okay. So here I go, driving out to this location, walking 15 minutes in the woods to the river by myself. And I go to check and see if anything's different. The squash is gone and the blueberries are gone. And I figured they would. I figured a deer was either going to eat them or woods animals. I don't know. But I couldn't find any remnants. I couldn't find any remnants of the squash. I couldn't find any remnants of the blueberries. And I'm looking pretty hardcore for remnants because I thought I'd at least see maybe part of the squash that I left there. And my vision went to the river, which is, you know, a foot in front of me. And I see a dead deer in the river with its neck broken and its legs broken. And I went to myself, well, this can't be coincidence. Because why would there be a deer? The river's not even a foot deep at this area. It's very shallow. I could walk in there if I wanted. So I'm trying to give you a visual. It's very shallow. It's on the side of the shore there. And I'm like, okay, there's a dead deer that looks pretty beat up. So I call Rich on the phone actually and said, hey, I'm a little nerved out right now. There is a dead deer in the river where I gifted. Blueberries are gone, squash is gone. And before I had a chance to say anything to him, he said, is its neck broken? Like, what do you guys want making me walk into? I'm like, yes, its neck is broken and its legs are broken. And it actually looks like something grabbed it on the hind quarter. I'm like, I don't know. Should I run?
Clearly, Rich hit a deer with his car, carried the deer to the gifting location, and planted the whole thing. That's got to be the answer.
Right. So I was like, okay. He's like, it sounds like you got gifted a deer. I said, what? He says, it sounds like you were gifted a deer in return for the squash and the blueberries.
That's a pretty good swap, by the way.
Yeah. I'm like, well, what if I don't want a deer? Because this is where my brain goes. What if I didn't want a deer? He's like, well, you got a deer. I'm like, well, I don't know how to feel about this. And is something going to come flying out of the woods now at me? Because at this point, I was still kind of in the fear. I don't know what this is all about. I don't know what to expect. Because what you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I'm going to hightail it out of here because I don't know what's going on. And I'm not so sure I don't need a deer. And then he made the comment. He says, well, how big is the deer? I said, it's a small one. It's not like it's a fawn or anything, but it's not very big. He says, do you think it weighs about as much as you? And I said, what, like 100 pounds? I said, maybe. He says, it sounds like you got gifted a deer that's about your size. And I'm like, well, what is that relevant to? I don't know. Yeah. So I hightailed it out of there because I was kind of freaked out. I left. Didn't take me long to get back to the parking lot. Didn't take me that 15 minutes. I mean, I was like, I don't know what to think right now and what is going on. So I want to say within that, there was like a couple of weeks in between the next visit where I was just kind of, okay, I got gifted a deer. And then I started talking to other people in the Bigfoot realm all over the map, people that are like, oh my God, they killed a deer. You should be careful. It's going to get you next. And then I had other people, no, you got gifted a deer. It's an honor. You should be honored. And like I said, at this point, I don't know where I'm at with all this because I wasn't tuning into their frequency. I didn't know their frequency yet. I just knew that I didn't know what this was. So I don't know, a week or two goes by, and Rich messaged me again, and he says, you should go back out there, see if the deer is still there. Well, I got to back that up a little bit. We did go back there and took the deer out of the river and put it on the shore. Forgot to tell you that because it's very important. I did not go back alone next time. I had Rich come with me. We took the deer out of the river. We put it on the shore. Then a week later, he says, you need to go back out there and you need to see if the deer is still there. And I'm like, I don't want to go back out there and see if the deer is still there. But I did go back out there, bring my phone with so I can take pictures. And I have pictures of each phase, the blueberries, the squash, the deer in the river, the deer on the shore. It's called documentation for my own sanity.
Sure.
And then I come back and the deer is gone. And there is no sign of it. There's no fur. There's absolutely no sign of the deer. It is gone. Call Rich on the phone. It's not here. He says, does it look like it got drug out or carried out? I said, there's no drag marks anywhere. Somebody must have picked it up. But who's going to pick it up? And how come I'm not seeing any footprints? I don't see where somebody would have taken it out. It's just gone. That was the deers. That's the deer story, the rock/deer story. I didn't gift after that food. I don't gift food anymore. I really don't want dead animals in return. I don't gift food. I will gift rocks. I will gift feathers. I will do rock formations in return of rock formations. I'll do stick words, but I don't. And I mean, the current Sasquatch group that I interact with now, we know each other very well, and I mean, over the years, I've learned to be very clear. Please don't gift me animals. I don't want dead animals. So that, and I don't gift animals or gift, food. So, because that was I was very scared for quite a while on that one.
So what changed?
Well, I did a podcast with Sasquatch Theory when I was still in fear mode. The first one I did with them, I was kind of fear, but on the fence. I think it was a gift in return, but I don't really know. I'm trying to think where this started to change mostly, because I would go out there and I would have buttons in the, there's different areas. I would go out to this hiking trail that nobody is willing to go to because it's deep in the woods and there's wood ticks and there's mosquitoes, and not everybody's willing to just kind of like go into the woods and find a little spot to sit and then make it your own,
right,
to go back and sit. So, you know, there's times I would go back to these places and sit, and there'd be a button there. Who's going to leave a button,
like
you know,
like
a mile in, like a clothing button? How would that get out there? Or like a baseball, a major league looking type baseball. Who's going to leave that in an area where I'm pretty sure no other human is going to? Just all these little gifts that I would get over the course of the 3-4 years that I spent there after the deer. And I would take people. I'm very selective who I take in the woods with me, because I'm learning that if someone is not of good intention, thinks they need a gun, wants to go hunting, there's not going to be any interaction. If I bring someone with me who has good intention, curious, open-minded, doesn't want to kill anything, typically we'll have an experience together. Whether it's a call or a wood knock or a tree, a snap, or something left on the trail. I'm trying to like think of when it really changed. I think it's just been a progression. I think it's been a progression of change. Because I had a lot of like third eye sightings because of being a psychic medium. Once I started learning their energy, I would see them in my third eye. Not all the time, because they're very good at cloaking. And that I've not changed my mind on. They're so good at, like, they don't want you to see them. You're not going to see them. So for a long time, once I learned their energy and their vibration, I'd get glimpses in the third eye and I'd be like, okay, they're here today. And then I did a shamanic life coaching training because besides being a social worker, I'm also into natural health. So I wanted to foster the side of my brain that's into shamanic health stuff. So I noticed a big change after I did a shamanic life coach training where I learned more shamanic type healing stuff, because it was shortly after that last year, I think June or July of 2023, I had my first full-on sighting without being a medium. And that really changed the game for me. Like, that changed, not that I didn't know they existed, not that I didn't know they weren't there, but to see one with my eyes versus my psychic eye. And then I ended up doing my second podcast with Sasquatch Theory to get updated. There was like this update. There was like my first one, and then it's like, okay, now I need to revisit some people that I have talked to when I was still green. And now we're going to go, listen, I just had my first sighting, my first true sighting.
Well, let's talk about that. Was that sighting just a random occurrence, or was it elicited, or how did that come about?
I spent about 5 years in the first location, getting to know the forest people, the Sasquatch, everybody calls them something a little different. I became very used to their habits where we were living and how they would interact with me. With the little gifts, or like with the whistling at me when I'm out in the woods, or the giggling when I walk by where I think they are, but I can't see them, but I can feel them. And then moving to where we are now, and in between that time doing this shamanic training, which I don't know if that's an aspect of why things are different here, or if it just feels like they're different here as well. But I was out hiking. So when we moved, I get so excited when I talk about this stuff. So when we moved, as we were getting settled into our new place, I decided to do some research on maps, Google Maps. Where are the hiking areas around where we live? Where are the deep wooded areas where I can go and see if I can find me a new Sasquatch family and see where they are. And so I thought, yeah, we're going to go to this very wooded area about 15 minutes away from where I'm at right now. And there's fair amount of hiking trails that are very wooded. I'm gonna just start walking these trails and see what I come up with. And I had already started seeing clues on the first time in this new area. I started seeing tree structures that I knew were very characteristic of Sasquatch. I could feel there was a Sasquatch energy out there, although it felt a bit more intense than the previous location we lived in. It was definitely Sasquatch energy, but it felt not only like older, but felt more intense. So I thought, okay, this is probably going to be a good area to get to know whatever Sasquatch group, clan, family might be in this neck of the woods. And probably about January, February, March, April, May, probably about 5 months of hiking and looking at different structures I would find and getting a sense of the energy. I just happened to be out there one day walking, and I was on the phone with my mom, walking one of the main trails, and I'm on the phone with my mom, and there's this girl coming my way from the opposite direction, and I can see something walking quite a ways behind her that I thought was human at first, because she's only 20 feet away from me, and she's coming the opposite direction. And I'm on the phone with my mom, so I'm somewhat distracted, but when in the distance, I can see something coming behind, not like right behind her, but coming towards me, just a ways. And so the girl passed me, and I'm on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, what am I seeing? I mean, like, there was this whole, I'm going to get off the phone now because I think what I'm seeing is not, at first it looked like a guy coming from a distance. It looked like a guy walking towards on the trail. And then I'm realizing that this is, to me, what I'd say now is probably a juvenile or a younger, not a younger Sasquatch, not like, because this one was tall and thin. And from my previous psychic visions of seeing them, I'd always see bigger ones, bigger, wider. I don't think I'd ever really seen a juvenile in my third eye. It was mostly the adults. So I'm looking at this, what is a Bigfoot coming towards me, and I hurry up and get off the phone with my mom, and it darts off the trail. Because I think it recognized, it realized that I saw it. I'm like, okay. So then my brain is trying to process that this is not my psychic eye. This is me seeing. So I'm hurrying, trying to get to where I saw it dart off the trail. And I'm thinking, well, it can't go far because it darted off the trail to the right, which there's a lake there. It didn't dart to the left, which would have been up the ravine on another trail where I wouldn't have been able to follow it. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be able to see it when I get to where it darted in because it's the lake. And I get to where it darted in and I cannot find it. I can't see it. I don't know where it went. And I'm looking and I'm like, where are you? Are you cloaking? I saw you. So I stayed around that area for a while but it disappeared. And that was cool. I mean, because that was cool. And it was tall and thin. The face really didn't have a lot of hair. It was just different looking than what I was used to seeing where we used to live. So to me, it felt like it was younger. There was a curiosity feeling that went with him. Definitely felt like a male, looked more male than female. But it was young. It was a younger one. I'm thinking, like, if I had to go by ages, 20, if I was to equate it with someone who's in their 20s versus, oh my gosh, this being feels 80 and ancient, So that was really interesting. So I was like, okay.
What color was it?
I want to say like a brown with reddish. Not like a dark brown, not like a black, more of like a brown reddish. And like I said, the face was And I think that's what threw me off from a distance was the face. I didn't see hair on the face. And the shoulders weren't as broad as what I'd been used to seeing in the psychic eye back at the other locations. I was just like, from a distance, I thought, oh, it's just a guy. And then as it got closer, I'm like, no, that's a Sasquatch.
Was the face area lighter or darker than the body?
Lighter. Yeah, and if I was a sketch artist, I would have sketched it by now. I'd love to be able to sketch these things because I do try, and then they just turn out looking really ridiculous. So that was in July of 2023. I'm not sure when telepathic communication started. I want to say it started back when we were living in the other location, but it's accelerated here. And I don't know if I don't know. I think I swear, like, all of us feel the same way. The more we think we know, the more questions we have.
Yeah.
I have some theories that I feel are pretty solid, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure they use portals because I've seen portals when I was head deep, I don't know how you want to say it, in the paranormal field. When I was doing paranormal stuff for people, and I'd have to close portals on people's property. I know what portals look like. So I'm convinced, and this is my opinion, that they use portals, and I think it's the trees. I think there's tree portals. I mean, I think they're interdimensional. People have asked me if I think they know the aliens. I don't know. I've had alien interaction. I don't know if the aliens and the Sasquatch know each other. I'm still learning myself. I just know that I don't fear them anymore. I feel like they protect me when I'm out in the woods. I feel like they're friends. They're like friends, but I'm not a threat either. I don't carry a gun. I have no intentions of harming anything. I'm actually more afraid of humans than I am of the Sasquatch. So,
as you should be.
It might be why I get so many. I get so much cool interactions, or I get led to places that I get to see things like bones from, I don't know, animals kind of shoved in like weird configurations in a tree, and or just structures. I find a lot of structures. I feel like I get led to their structures, which I think is really cool that they can intricate some of these branches to, who's going to take the time to weave all these branches together, and then the structure is going to be 10 feet high? Who's going to do that?
So I assume, which I shouldn't do, but I assume once you figured out how to, tune into their frequency, is that when the telepathic communication started? I think there was before that. I just didn't know, because before, when we were at the old location, I would go out to the woods when I felt the need to go out to the woods. But I think there was a lot of nudging me to come out and play, because now, like today I didn't go out with a nudge. Today I just went out in the woods because I needed some hiking time away from my noisy neighborhood we live in. But there's like the telepathic stuff. I have a whole little notebook of messages they've relayed to me in this last year, where I'll go out and ask, is there anything you'd like to tell me today? I think it's very important for me to say that I live on their terms. I don't make the terms. And I think that's where a lot of people who want to get to know Sasquatch and not live in fear, you have to be on their terms, and you have to not have any bad intentions, because they know you before you know you. They know everything about you before you even think. I think they know you when you're out in the woods, they know you. Like I feel like this is an ancient intelligent species that you're not going to pull the wool over their eyes. They're going to pull the wool over our eyes. It's obvious, because if I can't see them half the time, they're not letting me. So what's the telepathic communication like? Is it like a voice just pops in your head?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what does it sound like? Does it sound like a human voice of some human that you don't know, or?
It sounds human and deep. And this also leads to questions too, like,
How many languages do they speak? Or do they speak different languages to different people? Because to me, they speak in English. And there's times when I get a message, it sounds animalistic, but human.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say like monkey or ape-like, but there's like this tone it's English, but it doesn't sound like it's just a guy talking to me. You can tell that it's animalistic. I've only encountered one female Sasquatch, though, in my journey so far, just one. The rest has sounded male. But their messages are, when I go to the woods and say, okay, is there anything you would like me to know today? Do you want to show me anything? And I say this, I've said this a lot over the last 8 years, but more so the last 3 years, because I don't want to be startled. And they know that. I mean, after that deer incident, I'm sorry, I'm still a little freaked out, even though that was back then. There's just certain things that kind of stay with you. And I'll say things like, hey, just don't scare me. And I think that if it would have been a 12-foot, like seeing a big one in my psychic eye is different than I think would be seeing one. Like, I think seeing one that felt juvenile and younger and curious was exactly what I needed to see, not to scare me. But the messages are always very, for example, I'm going to go back to a message I was given during the winter when I was out at the location I'm at now, and I'm like getting scattered all over because I got like 10 different things I want to talk to you about.
I'm getting scattered all over. Are you kidding me?
One of the most pronounced messages that I've received more than once is, love is the answer. What do you want me to know today? Love is the answer. Okay. Cool. Thank you. We know you before you know yourself. Sooner or later, we're going to get tired of being encroached on. I've heard that. Makes sense. Yep. Another reason why when I go to locations where I know they've set up like their camp, so to speak, because there's different locations where they have like places they gather, I will ask for permission to step in. Is it okay that I'm here today? Can I visit where you guys gather? Even though I can't see you today, I wait for a yes or a no. Sometimes I've been told no. We don't really want you here today. Okay, I respect that.
This is a question that always comes to mind whenever we're discussing this particular subject. And since you have your background in the paranormal, you might be a really great person to answer.
Okay, maybe.
You're out there. You're basically eliciting a response because you're asking a question. Mm-hmm. You get an answer. How do you know it's coming from a Bigfoot?
Because I know their vibration. I know their vibration. And I know their energy.
Another person might not, though, right?
Right. And that's why it's important to get training from either a shaman or someone who's really well-versed. Because if I back this up a little bit, before I came out of the woodwork as a professional medium, I was trained under a shaman for about 10 years, even though I was talking to those who had passed since I was a child. When I decided to become a professional medium, I trained under a shaman to hone my skills. And then I have my Native American people that gave me my Native American name they helped me in the early stages with you got to get on their vibration. Okay. And that took some time. That's why there's no fear anymore, because I get their vibration. I understand. Like if I go in the woods and I don't know because there's been instances where I'm out and about and I don't know the energy I'm dealing with, I will ask, what is this? And there's times I don't get answers. So then I just kind of like close the door, because there are times I don't want to know. And I used to do that when I was doing a lot of medium work too, where if there was an energy I wasn't quite sure of, I can close the door and not deal with it.
I just think it's very important because, I mean, you hear about these you know, I don't know the right word to use, really, supernatural or paranormal experiences that people have when dealing with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever the proper name is. And Joe Blow can go out in the woods and hear a voice or hear something whistling and be drawn to that, or think that they're having an interaction with a Bigfoot, but they might not be. It might be something else. Maybe
Right.
using that as a lure, pretending to be a Bigfoot because it knows your intent is to have a Bigfoot interaction.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's why it's discernment and education. And I know I used to talk about this in the paranormal field. If you're going to be a paranormal investigator, you should probably get trained properly first before you walk into a house full of spirits that you don't know what kind of spirits you're dealing with.
Amen, sister.
That is a whole different
Yeah.
effing subject.
Yeah.
I used to do educational classes on that in.
Oh, looky there.
We just got cut off.
Yeah, see what happens? My right arm has goosebumps. Is there something here trying to cause problems?
Right. You never know. But right. When I first started working with a paranormal team in the Upper Peninsula, all of us had educated each other, and we all had there's just things. I mean, if you don't know, this is why it's important to have this is why it's important if you're going to be a paranormal investigation team. There's some key rules to be a good team. Notice I said the word good. You have to have good intentions. You have to have your own shit taken care of, at least for the most part. You have to be working on your own private personal problems, because you never know what you're going to walk into that might want to attach to you before you leave. And then you got to know how to unattach things if you're going to walk into a situation where there might be some stuff that wants to attach to you. And then you should have a good, reputable, solid, grounded medium on your team, so that person can walk in first and be like, this is what we're dealing with and this is how we're going to operate.
Yeah, there's other things out there besides Bigfoot, is the point.
Yes. There's entities, and I don't use the word demonic very often, because that's very rare. It actually is more rare than people want you to believe. Just quit watching TV and all the shows and all the paranormal people. Just stop. Demons are rare. They're not, but there's a lot of different types of possessions that are entities they could seem demonic in nature, but they're not. They're just a pain in the ass. Can I use that word?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to know. You've got to be solid, and everybody's kind of has to have their shit together. I don't know how else to put it.
I know we're kind of going off trail here, but I'm just saying, I think it's important for people to realize that, if you're inexperienced whenever it comes to the paranormal, or maybe not that knowledgeable, or maybe you're just out there looking for Bigfoot, you're not even messing with ghosts, that sort of mindset. You don't have to be in a cemetery or an old creepy house to encounter things.
No, you don't.
It can be the middle of nowhere out in the woods. So
yes,
you just have to be careful,
because there's depending on what a person personally believes in, but yeah, there's other things out there. We could talk about Dogman. We could talk about leprechauns. We could talk about weird looking creatures that probably got slipped through some portal somebody opened because they were being stupid. There's a lot more out there.
Back to the messages. Any warnings? Have you ever encountered anything where it's like
just the Sasquatch family that I currently interact with where I live have said that at some point and I don't know if they're talking about their whole species, because I haven't asked, they are going to be tired of being stalked and encroached on. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I respect your boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you think about it, drones, 50 people going out in the woods. Yeah, Bigfooters, those who are just thrill seeking, don't really understand the depth of this whole situation. But if you meet them on their terms, and if you have good intentions and you meet them on their terms, They're the kindest, most compassionate. You can, like, they are here to teach us that love is the answer. I mean, that's profound.
Yeah.
They are planet watchers. They're watching the planet. So, hey, cool. Can you guys take care of some of the crap that's going on the planet right now? I don't know.
So, any insight onto what the structures mean, what they're for?
I think that's individual. I do. I think that, I mean, I don't know if an X means the same thing to me that it means to somebody else. And who is to say that the family I'm dealing with, their X doesn't mean something different than the X over in Washington? I don't know. See, at least leads more questions.
Yeah.
For me, personally, when I go out looking or being led to a structure, I just show up at the structure and go, wow, this is amazing. You guys know what you're doing. Like, how do you do it? And sometimes I snap pictures and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just observe and look around, and sometimes I feel like it's cool to snap pictures, and other times I don't think they want me taking pictures. But I do have one picture out of these 8 years where I've been photobombed. If you look hard enough in the picture, you can see the silhouette of a Sasquatch. It's one of my favorite pictures. But out of the 8 years, I've only been photobombed once. I've only caught one, well, maybe two. There's another one that's kind of iffy way back in the day, but one that I'm sure of that I've got a picture of. The rest is just structures, things they leave me, things I just find, whether it's random or they led me there. I've had a couple of gifts show up in my house. That's another subject. How do they end up putting things in my house?
Yeah.
When I'm not home, when I just visited them. But I've talked to various other people who have had that kind of, just there's a thread out there of people who have had home interaction telepathically or vocally. There's smells too. I've had different smells in the woods that I know are them.
You being a psychic medium, depending on the school of thought, we'll just say it's not something everybody does or has tapped into.
Right.
Do they all have these abilities that you're talking about, like the telepathic communication, or is it just certain ones like it is with humans?
Are all Bigfoot telepathic? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
I don't know. Are they?
I don't know. I'm just,
I don't know.
It's always, kind of been one of my ponderings. Like maybe some of them can do the mind speak and other ones can't,
Well, let's go with the theory that they are human-like. They're not human, but they're human-like. So if they are human-like, and this is stuff I stood up at night thinking about, writing notes about. If they're human-like, that would mean that they grow up, they start out as children, and they learn as they go. So maybe some of them don't have the telepathic because they haven't grown into it yet.
Could be.
Could be.
I mean, like you were talking about with the language thing. How many languages do they speak?
Yeah.
That's one of those things where, like, the more we think we know, the more questions. For us, I was raised around English-speaking people. I heard it every day of my life. You start picking up on it, then you go to school and you learn grammar and all that. How would something like that learn English? How would one learn English in one place and one learn it in another place without it being taught to them? Who taught them English to begin with?
Yeah, and is it just they just know how to adapt because that's how intelligent they are? I mean, I have friends in other states that talk with them in Ojibwe.
Wow.
Okay. Great. I mean, that'd be awesome. I should learn Ojibwe. I'm supposedly Ojibwe.
I heard a woman here in Oklahoma. She was Wichita, and she said that they speak the language of whatever tribe they live around. And I thought that was really interesting. Because that would also translate to if they live around English-speaking people, they're going to speak English.
Yeah.
But again, is it something where we just have built-in psychic translators?
Maybe.
Maybe
because according to, I don't know, something I read a long time ago, humans only tap into a tiny part of their intelligence. Everyone has psychic capabilities. Some of us are born with it, others can, but everyone can learn it. There are world-renowned psychic mediums out there that teach others how to access their gifts. So, everybody has the capability of tapping into some type of, there's scope, obviously, but yeah, what if they're just such an advanced species that they can translate the language they need to so you understand them?
So what are some of the more unique gifts that you've found in your house or that they've brought you? I hope they didn't leave a dead deer laying on the couch or anything.
No, because I quit gifting food. I'm not tempted to gift food, I don't think, ever again. I don't know, I can't say that. But so there was this one day. So June, July, I had my first full sighting. August, September, October. December, I had my second sighting. By the way, I did have a second full sighting, and this one looked different than the first one. So somewhere after that second sighting, January, February. So February of this year, 2024, it was winter, because I remember I was walking a trail that I should have had snowshoes on, but I just said, screw it. I'm going to just walk this trail in my boots because I want to get to the lake. And it was a different side of the trail that I hadn't been on in a while, a lot of snow, and I was just walking along, and I heard a female say hi, not too far away from where I had seen a structure before snow.
Like actually said hi or telepathically?
Said hi.
Okay.
And I had to stop, and I had to do my thing.
Yeah.
And I had to do my thing. Was this a ghost? Is this a what energy am I dealing with? So I had to stop because it caught me off guard, which that's what they do, like random,
yeah.
And I stopped, and I was like, okay, I'm going to feel into the energy. I'm like, oh, this is a female Sasquatch. Well, this is new. Okay, thank you. Hi. And I just went along my merry way because it was winter and the snow was deep. And so then I get home. This is just another one of those stories where I'm like, she's crazy. So I get home, and I see an earring on my rug when I walk in the door that should not be there because it's not my earring.
Not your earring. Okay.
Not my earring. My son is not here. He don't wear earrings. He's at work. And it's shiny and it's metal. And I'm like, where did that come from? I just had an interaction with a female Sasquatch. How did this earring get on my carpet? Okay, we're gonna take notes now. We're gonna put this in the notebook.
Yeah.
And we're gonna document this, because someday I might write a book. I don't know. And I have to have a sense of humor about it, because this kind of stuff is crazy.
Yeah.
What the heck? So I've told a few people about that story, which they all think it's cool, because I'm not gonna just tell some random person on the street, by the way. Or anybody in my family who thinks I'm nuts. But
I have a friend. I won't tell her name because I don't know if she'd want me to, but she's probably listening to this episode. I hope she is. She better be. She finds those little stretchy black hair ties.
Really?
Everywhere. Now, we've been discussing it, trying to figure it out. She's enlisted my help trying to understand it. She's someone who's had experiences with the paranormal her entire life. We did meet through the Bigfoot world. She doesn't think it's Bigfoot related at all. I don't think it's Bigfoot related. It doesn't seem to have any connection to the Bigfoot. But she told me she was finding them. And at first I was like, oh yeah, I see those hair ties every now and then. But she only finds black ones. And she has found hundreds. Hundreds. It's always just like a random thing. She just looks down and there's one laying there.
Wow.
And we can't figure it out. We don't know who's leaving them, why they're leaving them, what's the message behind the leaving of the hairbands.
So she doesn't think it's Sasquatch?
No.
Just maybe it's somebody who's passed away that's their clue. Yep.
Right, yeah.
Somebody that's passed away and that's their way.
I mean, as a point, I started paying attention, trying to find them. And I have found one in like the past year where she's found dozens. I don't know. It's weird.
I wonder if it's one of her guides or one of her guardian angels.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could be.
Could be another guy who was a Navajo Ranger. He's pretty well known at this point for him and his partner's involvement. They would investigate paranormal encrypted things on behalf of the Navajo Nation. And he was in a paranormal investigation at some point inside of a building, and these coins started showing up, like loose pocket change. And he's still finding them. And he's found hundreds of dollars worth of quarters and nickels and dimes that just he'll leave the room, come back in the room, and there'll be like 3 or 4 nickels laying on his desk. Just out of thin air. Money. Yeah. That must be nice. Maybe they can start leaving like $100 bills or something. But
that would be great.
But yeah, the whole phenomenon of materialization of physical objects that are like clearly human, that's such a weird thing.
Yeah, and I would not have made the connection if it wouldn't have, for the female, the interaction, and then to come home and the earring, it's like, okay, here's the connection. I don't know. I mean, even the button I found says on it, homemade with love.
Oh, wow.
It's clearly a button that you would like sew on a jacket or something, but it says, homemade love on it. And I'm thinking, what the heck? I mean, that's just cool stuff. I mean,
when did your second sighting happen?
Okay, so my first sighting was July 2023. The second sighting was more into winter, so I want to say like August, September, December-ish. I head out to this hiking area where I've been for the last year and a half now, and I went to the other side. There's 2 different access ways to get there by car. And I decided I'm going to go on the east end access versus the west end. And did I decide that, or did somebody nudge me to go there? I think I was nudged. But it's winter, but it's not a cold winter day. Not a whole lot of snow on the ground. It's probably, I'd say, in the 40s. So I take the east access point, get out of my vehicle. I start down the trail, and this trail from this side loops off to, you can either go left or right, because all these trails kind of intersect with each other. And I said out loud, should I go left or should I go right? And I'm just like, I'm going to go right. I don't know if it felt like I needed to go right or I was getting pushed right. But obviously, because I started walking right, I'm probably a minute in, and there's going to be this corner that's going to come up. It's going to be like a curve, and I can see something bending over. And at first, from where I was, because I'm not wearing my glasses, it looked like a guy was bending over wearing black. From where I was at this moment, it looked like black snow pants, bending over away from me. Now, keep in mind, I've told them over and over, please, if you're going to show yourself to me, don't scare me. Don't
jump
do it.
out
Don't do
from
it
behind a tree.
Don't do it in a way where I'm going to go, holy F, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm 58 years old. I don't need this. So as I'm getting closer, I'm realizing that's hair, that's fur. So unless somebody's wearing long furry boots, and I'm getting closer, and I'm like, this is my second sighting. Oh my gosh. And I'm trying not to get I'm nervous and I'm anxious. And I did stop because, again, I'm stopping and I'm like, I don't know. Should I turn around and go back, or should I keep going forward? So I just keep pushing myself forward, because, I mean, even though at this point I shouldn't be scared and I'm not scared, I still get that immediate, oh my God, what am I seeing? It stands up and it starts walking fast. And I was like, now I'm going to have to walk faster to keep up because there's going to be a corner coming up. And then at that next corner, it Y's off to the left or the right. But those Y's are so long that by the time I catch up around this corner, I'm going to see which way it went. Unless it's, and I've got this all going in my head as I'm picking up my pace now, because I want to, as it's rounding the corner, walking away from me, standing straight up, I get to that corner. It's gone. It is gone. And it's gone. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start running, because if it made it to the Y, it had to go right or left. But the right or left is so long that I'm going to see it running. So I get to the Y, nothing. It's gone. So I backtracked, and I don't see any tracks. Nothing in the snow. I backtrack to where I saw it stand up and start walking away from me. And I don't see any prints. I don't see where it went. But this one was taller than the juvie, darker, black, but still not very wide. More broad-shouldered than the first one. But where did it go? Where did he go? And I mean, through the years, I've heard deep swooshes in the woods when I'm out there. I see branches moving. I've seen things that I'm attributing to Sasquatch, because it's not going to be a bear. It's not going to be a deer. Not when it's that heavy. Not when it's that much of a swoosh. But then there's times like this where I start picking up my pace, and it's gone. So I either took off in the woods or hit the Y and it went in the woods. It was just, so if I was wrong and it wasn't a Sasquatch and it was a human, how did it get away from me so quick?
Right.
I would have seen it, because the trail is a straight shot once you get to that Y both ways. Nobody's running that fast away from me. So that was, a different color, similar stature, but wider in the shoulders. But I'm getting the back view, not the front view. And what am I going to do? Pull out my phone and take a picture? Why don't I think of these things?
Nobody does. I don't care who you are. Nobody does.
It's with me.
Yeah.
And I have another little story about a tree. The mushroom tree. A lot of people, I don't know if it's just in upper Michigan across this parallel where we live, but there's this medicine mushroom that's on a tree called chaga. And then there's another one called polyvore, I think it's called polyvore, and I might have pronounced that wrong, but it grows on birch trees. Polypore and chaga. They grow on birch trees, and Native American cultures use them to make tea and tinctures. And this would be now between my first and second sighting. So this would be late fall 2023. I'm walking through the forest on a different trail that loops with one of the other trails on the west side. It's an old railroad grade. And I see this old birch tree. And I'm looking at, it's either chaga or polypore. It's one of the two. I get them mixed up. And I'm like, oh, look at there. And I'm saying this out loud. There's some medicinal mushroom on that tree. Too bad I can't reach it. And I was trying to figure out a way, I'm not going to climb this tree because there's no way to climb it. It's just a straight, and it was an older birch tree. The top of it was like the very top of it was gone, but it had all these medicinal mushrooms on it. But the closest one was definitely not within my reach, because I would have had to go off of the grade, and then I would have been down in kind of a ditch. And there was no way for me to get to this one that would have been at the base of the tree. I still wasn't going to be able to reach that. So I'm standing there and I'm going, it'd be really great if I could get some of that and bring it home and make tinctures, because I've done that before. And I said that out loud, and I'm standing there looking at it for a little bit, and then I was just like, well, I'm just going to keep walking, because it's just kind of a bummer. I can't reach that. I don't know, 3, 4 days, 5 days later, I'm back out at the same trail, and the tree had been pushed over. And I look around and I go, well, I don't know if this is coincidence, and I don't know if this is just nature. I'm trying to debunk it, because back in the paranormal field, I tried to debunk pretty much everything before I would subscribe to it being supernatural. I'm sitting there going, okay, one of two things. The Sasquatch folk heard me when I was out here talking the other day about how much I wanted the medicinal mushroom and I just couldn't reach it, and they knocked the tree over for me. Or nature did it. One of the two. But I ended up getting some medicinal mushroom to take home.
I mean, again, what are the odds? I mean, what are the odds, really? The exact tree, not just a random tree, but the exact tree.
The exact tree. And where it was snapped off was like right in the, so it would have been about 7 feet up, snapped off, and then the top of it was laying on the ground. And there was all kinds of mushrooms, on there that I could take home and dry out and make tea. It's one or the other. It's either the Sasquatch folk or it's nature did it. And I'm leaning towards Sasquatch, of course, but and that is a known, and that is one of the areas where I have felt their energy before too. So, within 30-foot radius there, I've had rocks thrown at me. Not at me, but thrown. I don't want to say at me like they were trying to hit me, but rocks, thrown in my path.
You said something earlier that caught my attention that I have to ask about.
Okay.
Aliens.
Oh, aliens, yeah. What about them?
You said what? Oh, yeah. Those guys.
Well, when I start talking about the alien stuff, then it gets really, because the alien stuff didn't start until after the Bigfoot showed up in my life. So I'm still digesting that, and that's a whole, it's like Dogman showed up in the paranormal world.
In the paranormal world?
Yeah, I've had more than one Dogman encounter. I think there's 2 encounters with a family that I was working with because they needed to deal with some of their stuff. That's a paranormal story for a movie. I'm not sure. But the Dogman that was attached to their family, there was 2 encounters, and then I've had 1 encounter where I live now. But the alien stuff didn't start showing up until after Bigfoot. And I don't put too much attention there because, I don't know where that's going to go. I don't know.
Would you be willing to come back for a part 2 and talk about
Sure.
that stuff and the Dogman stuff and the paranormal stuff and all that stuff?
Absolutely. Aliens and abductions would be wonderful.
Oh, and abductions. Okay, yeah.
Aliens, abductions, showing up in my kitchen. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm just a normal girl walking around on this planet trying to be normal, which I'm not. My normal is normal to me.
I mean, you're failing miserably if you're trying to be normal. I hate to burst your bubble, but you suck at being normal.
I mean, it's an interesting life. It really is.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight and your stories, and I look forward to having you back on for a part 2.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was a blast. It was great. I can't wait to do part 2.
Yeah, I got lots more questions.
Okay, great. Hopefully I'll have some answers, or I'll have I don't know.
And if you've had your own experience with Sasquatch or the paranormal or aliens or anything else you can't explain, send me an email at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to social media, merchandise, past episodes, everything you need all in one place. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.